looks like it is just going to be me tonight. Okay. Oh, I just got the message. I'm going to try to resend this invite. But I might have to hide this real fast. Give me a second here. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. A little bit of PC issues.
Let's see. Re-enable this guy, but this guy is not looking in the right spot. Yeah, so they changed it. It's no longer Hangouts. It is Meet. And the interface is no longer the same. So, before, I used to have both of us on screen and little minimized to the sides. But
it's showing me up in the top corner.
Yeah, there's no way to do that in this mode. Unless there's some other... Well, so, while it's not... Well, it's kind of not nice because you can't see both people at the same time anymore. I can present my desktop, so you can watch the videos as I'm watching them and as I pause them, so that is nice. So,
oh, good.
I'm going to go ahead and present that window, so that way I don't have to send you the link. So that's the... But I think it's going to take over... Let's see, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work with OBS. Yeah, so unfortunately, I got to change this filter, so at least it'll be... that's going to change a lot. Yeah. What am I trying to do here? Oop. As I show everybody streaming with the key, but nobody's watching, so who cares? Bear with me here. I will try to get this narrowed down. Let's see, was that like 450? Probably, nope, too much. 400? Okay, so 375. There, that's good. And that'll be probably like 1,000 or something. 1,500. Alright. Okay, so let's go 1,600. That's probably like 50. Possibly 100. And then that's gonna be... Okay. Although, I don't like how that turned out, so I'm just going to remove the name. That's... Oops. Alright. It's a little bit better. Why did that try to change the size of my other window? No, I can't change the size of the window. Alright, whatever. That'll be good enough for now. Okay. So you can see my what I'm presenting, right? You're muted at the moment.
Yes, the bar disappears on me with this new interface.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see what you're presenting, and I can see you on the other side.
Alright. And I'm gonna kind of bombard myself with a little bit of... feedback on my end. So
Yes, the
because I'm
bar
not
disappears on
sure
me
if the
with
audio is
this
going
new
to
interface.
come through.
But yeah, I can see what you're
Okay.
presenting.
Yeah, so so the stream is picking up both of our audios from the meeting, and it should be picking up my audio from my desktop here, so it's not going to be a problem. And so right now, I'm on the page that says HUMANE placeholder, right? That's what you're seeing on the presenting?
Yep.
Okay. Alright, so sorry for the technical issues. Anybody else who does end up watching this, welcome to tonight's episode, Humane Mind Live, episode 123. Peaceful Protestors, ? And peaceful is spelled not peace as in love, joy, peace, but peace as in pieces of rubble. So I'm going to be talking a little, obviously a lot about the events that have been going on for about a week now, because this just started in the last video we did, so on the last Thursday, because I think the first protests and stuff were Wednesday night, and it proceeded on to Wednesday, so it's going on a little bit over a week now. And then I'm going to be talking about, I was trying to come up with a better name for this, but this kept sticking in my head the more and more I thought about it. Killing in the Name. That's... You probably remember that Rage Against the Machine song, which the more and more I'm looking at it, the more it's like, wow, that is... although, yeah, I'll get into that later. So then I got Father Figures.
That whole album sounded like it was, I guess against oppression, the police, and whatever.
Yeah.
But now you can apply it directly to what's happening, and it's like 180-degree opposite, but it still fits.
Yeah, that's exactly what my thoughts on it is. It sounds like, rather than a protest against the police, it sounds like a protest against the protesters, or not the people being labeled protesters, I should say. So then I'm going to be talking about Father Figures, which is a pretty interesting video. It was actually a very, a very good video from PragerU and with Larry Elder. And then I'm going to kind of put my Deerstalker cap on, and my Deerstalker cap may or may not be made out of tinfoil. We'll see on that. And then I'll be talking a little... after Father Figures, so it's kind of in order of absurdity and rage going towards more lighthearted. So hopefully that's a good format, because the topics get a little more lighthearted as it goes. So I'll be talking about playing both sides there, and then I'll be talking about everybody's favorite soft drink, Fantifa. And then the ending clip, man, that's got to be one of the most amazing things that the internet has provided, and so that we'll check that out. All right. So before I start, any concepts, or because I know you said you're having technical problems, so if you drop out, I'll understand why. But it's because you don't like the material we're going over. Okay. So starting with this.
That is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice in the process of gaining our rightful place.
Yeah, the volume on this is pretty quiet.
We must not be guilty of wrongful deeds.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't hear it at all.
Satisfy
At all?
our thirst for freedom
Nope.
by drinking from the cup of bitter.
I'm gonna restart it because I think I think I'm not presenting with audio.
Yeah, it's showing a little mute sign over your presentation and says I can't unmute someone else's presentation.
Well,
So I think there's two separate mutes.
Why is this presentation muted? It's not giving me the option to unmute it. Why can't I? I could unmute it previously. That's unfortunate. So, why? Let's see. There's gotta be something in my settings, right?
Do you have?
More than likely, it's because I'm presenting in multiple spaces, so it's got to be something where I can't present the audio from the videos here because I'm using OBS.
Do you have a different way to share, like
Nope, there's only just present.
present a Chrome tab option for sharing?
I could do a Chrome tab. Let's try that. Okay. All right. Oh, I see. I guess I got to do each tab individually in order to get the audio. Is that how that works? All right.
I think so, but now it's not showing the muted symbol.
All right. So I'm gonna play this, and you should be able to hear it now.
That I must say to my people,
Right?
Yep.
who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice, in the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds.
Oh, I see. I guess I gotta do each tab individually in order to get the audio. Is that how that works?
By drinking from the cup of
I think
bitterness
so,
and hatred.
but now it's not showing the muted symbol.
Alright. So I'm gonna play this, and you should be able to hear it now.
That I must say to my people,
Right?
we must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence.
Man.
Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
I'm gonna pause it right there, and I was surprised because I was looking for this clip for over an hour because I know he said these words in that I Have a Dream clip, and I watched about 17 or more I Have a Dream speech clips where this is edited out. They start at the beginning of the speech, it goes on and it cuts to this, and then it goes on to the rest of it, and I'm like, where was his? I was like, okay, maybe it was after, and I'm like, no, maybe it was before. There are so many versions of the I Have a Dream speech that are out there online that this section is not displayed, and I'm like, that is so bizarre.
That's not bizarre. That has to be done on purpose. Why would you cut out part of the speech?
Yeah. He talks about being the necessity for being nonviolent, and that has been stripped from his speech in most of the places where this speech is uploaded. And I was trying to highlight that because I was comparing that to what is going on right now, because a lot of people were comparing the current marches and protests to Selma. And I'm like, Selma was a peaceful protest. Nothing was set on fire, nothing was looted, and that's why it was successful. It was a coalition of blacks and whites and Hispanics. I mean, well, granted, probably a very not a very big percentage of Hispanics because they weren't a big percentage of the population in Selma, but it was a multicultural mix, marching peacefully, and they got their agenda through. This changed the nation. Setting things on fire and destroying property and killing people, that gets he explained it right there. Like, that makes you everything you're supposed to be fighting against. You become
Yep.
what you're, and the message is lost, and you're not going to get any change. And instead, people look at, and that's the rage building up inside of me, and when everybody's looking at this is like, yeah, does anybody even remember the name of the guy who died? Like, how many times do you hear George Floyd outside of, now the narrative has shifted entirely to protests or peaceful protests and riots. It's coverage of riots, and they keep calling it peaceful protest. That's the name of that's the reason for the question mark there.
Yeah.
They're
I
destroying
think
everything.
the only time I've heard George Floyd recently is Tucker Carlson,
Yeah.
where he kind of went on a giant rant, and Sargon had like an hour or so video
Well,
talking
yeah,
about it.
no, So what I'm saying, so you'll have right-wing personalities continually bringing up George Floyd, mentioning George Floyd. They've got clips of George Floyd's family talking about, don't do this in his name. This is not what he would have wanted. You are dishonoring his memory. You are, you're. This is a shame to any kind of legacy he might have left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So his brother has gone on there, and I think it is. There's clips of his. I believe it was his sister or aunt. I'm not sure. Also making the same kind of speeches and saying this is not honoring him. So, all right, and I'm gonna say something that might. All right, so George Floyd was not a saint. He was not the epitome of black culture. He's not a hero. Similar, like even Martin Luther King was not perfect. Martin Luther King had plagiarized part of his doctoral dissertation, if not the majority of it. He's cheated on his wife, was a philanderer, adulterer, but that is irrelevant to what he displayed here and the movement he was leading and what he achieved for the people in his community. He wasn't perfect, but he did something that very few people would be able to do, and his name will go on down in history and be remembered long after the 99.99% of humans have lived and died. It's the 99% of humanity in the year 3000 will have been forgotten, but Martin Luther King Jr.'s name will go on to the year 3000. Unless there's some kind of apocalypse that wipes out all computers and wipes out all written, that wipes out all human history. Even then, people who are alive will tell the story of Dr. Martin Luther King. As long as the human race exists, his name will go down. His name is going to go throughout the ages. But George Floyd was a flawed human being, and as the results of more and more autopsies have come, it looks like the officer was not directly responsible for his death. So, the fact that the officer had his knee on the man's neck was not cutting off the airway, was not putting pressure on, putting pressure on the spine to the point where it would block airflow or blood flow. But the man is still being charged. Well, the charge was upgraded from murder in the third degree to murder in the second degree. I saw Ben Shapiro's on this, and I'm kind of in agreement. I was like, I don't think this crosses the line into murder in the second degree. I could see that. I think is going to be a lot harder to prove in court. I think murder in the third degree they definitely have on lock. So I think it's a dangerous mistake to step it forward and try to do it. But I do think this man is guilty of murder. Now, had he removed himself from the body, and so what I think happened is George Floyd was on drugs, and when he got busted, he was having a panic attack, and it accelerated all that sort of accelerated this. Apparently they found fentanyl in his system in these autopsies. So he was having a drug overdose, and he was having a bad reaction. And I think the incident with the cops, it got his blood pumping and exacerbated the effects of that. That seems the most likely scenario. But it's the case. I was thinking about this as but even if you encounter somebody who is, let me come. I'm trying to come up with a decent scenario that's kind of similar, but you can understand. Okay, so let's say a person was shot with a lethal gunshot wound to the stomach, and they are dying and they're bleeding out. And rather than getting medical attention for them or doing things to help ensure that they can survive until the ambulance comes, you instead roll them over onto their stomach and then start kneeling on their neck. Granted, the gunshot wound is what killed them, but you are not helping the situation, and if anything, you are exacerbating the situation, and that's why I think this man is guilty of murder in the third degree, at least. I don't think it was intentional to the point where he's like, yeah, this man needs to die. I think it was like gross negligence, which is similar to murder in the third degree. It's not along the lines of manslaughter, which manslaughter is more along of negligence, but this is kind of more along the lines of, like, say you're driving and you run through a red light and you hit somebody, that could be considered manslaughter, whereas if, you look both ways and see there's no traffic and you floor it through instead of just driving through at regular, it's a step above. It's like, it's not that you unintentionally did something that led to somebody's death. It's that you intentionally did something, and that what you intentionally did, you weren't seeking to murder somebody, but your intentional action led to somebody's inevitable death. Now, I think it's a little murky here, because it looks like because of the fentanyl in George Floyd's system, he would have died even if the officer had not put him on the ground and was holding him with his knee on his neck. But I think the officer had no way of knowing that and still did what he did. That's the thing, is the officer had no way of knowing that George Floyd was dying, whether he did anything or not, and yet he proceeded to take the action that was deliberate, and it wasn't alleviating the situation, it wasn't making the situation easier, it wasn't helping George Floyd to calm down, it was, if anything, it was making a bad situation worse. And that's why I think because he didn't know what we know now, and in the situation he was in, based on the actions he was taking, he was doing something deliberately that would have ended the man's life. And the fact that George Floyd stopped moving, and it looks like he stops breathing for a full 8 minutes while this officer still has his knee on his neck, I was like, yeah, that's...
Yeah, but the thing is, if it was just the one officer and this guy is on drugs or kind of, a little out of his mind or something, he having a little bit of force in trying to detain somebody.
Yeah.
But there was 3 guys.
Yeah.
There's pictures from outside of the car. 3 guys were kneeling on him.
There's 4, because all 4 of them have been charged. So the man who was kneeling on his neck has been charged with murder. The other 3 have been charged with aiding and abetting, I think. They've been charged with lesser crimes, but yeah.
He's obviously detained. I don't know why they had him laying on the ground, that like 3 guys kneeling on him. I don't see what...
Yeah.
Because if George Floyd had these drugs in the system and he's already kind of panicking and needed medical assistance, and he was already kind of, I guess heading towards an overdose, if they had him in the car or they were standing there with handcuffs, his handcuffs behind his back, and doing what you would normally see during an arrest, or detaining somebody, then they could be blamed for anything. That would be his fault for just throwing the drugs in, and they would have to get medical personnel. But the thing they were doing, you're absolutely right, that was very excessive. Why? That wasn't necessary at all.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if George Floyd was not already dying of a drug overdose, what that man was doing would have led to his death. And that's why people were jumping to the conclusion that he died because of the officer's knee on his neck. It is very likely that what the officer was doing...
That's a very easy conclusion.
Yeah. That it's the... Okay, so I guess it would be kind of like somebody has a lethal gunshot, but you don't see it, and they're running away from you, and you shoot them in the back of the head. It's like, well, they would have died anyway, but it's like, well, if you shot them in the back of the head, you're just as
Well, it
guilty
would kind
as
of be like
as
punching somebody in the face and then they die from a heart attack.
Not quite, because how would you have known if they had a weak heart condition or something
Well, I
along those
mean,
lines? Yeah. So what I don't think what
again,
he
they
did
didn't
was,
know he was
yeah.
on drugs.
Yeah, no, they knew something
Or
was
maybe
wrong
they
because
had
they
him
had called the
into an ambulance
ambulance,
when he died
right?
from it.
When the officer was kneeling
Yeah.
on
So they didn't know he
George
was
Floyd,
dying from it.
they were waiting for the ambulance to arrive. So they had already called the ambulance. The ambulance was on its way. And it's like, if that's the situation, the best thing that they could have done, sit him up, prop him up, maybe put his hands are behind his back and he's leaning against the vehicle, so that way he's getting more air. I don't know if that would have saved his life, but at least at that point, nobody could have charged anything against these officers. If George Floyd was just handcuffed, leaning against the vehicle,
Yep.
and the officers were hands off and just saying, "Hey, don't come near this guy's on drugs, and the guy could say whatever he wanted then, say, "Oh, I can't breathe," and the officers would have been like, "Dude, we're not touching him. This is not something we caused." But the fact that he was doing this while while the officer was leaning on him, and while the other officers were not doing anything to stop, it's like, yeah, but everything they were doing looked like as if they wanted to cause his death. And I'll get a little more into that in the conspiracy tinfoil hat. Because there are things that I am starting to see, and I'm wondering if I'm maybe I'm pulling a little too hard on little threads. Alright. But so while George Floyd's name is being forgotten amongst the protests, I should stop calling them protests. I'm saying protests, but that's protests with quotes around it because they are violent riots. Now, there are peaceful protesters, and the violent rioters are using them as cover while they destroy cities, set things on fire, take things, and kill people. At that point, if you are a peaceful protester, you stop. You stop doing what you're doing because you are acting as a smokescreen for people who want to destroy and loot. You say, hey, we want no part of this. Separate yourselves. Go and protest someplace away from the big cities, away from buildings, go and find a designated area, like in a park. What is there to loot in a park? It's a public area. Do your protests there. No one can accuse you of attacking people or destroying property or stealing things if you're in the middle of a park where nobody is being attacked and nothing is being set on fire. And if that starts to get set on fire, then you move it to your houses. That's, like, I don't understand the people who are like, oh, we're just out here peacefully protesting. And it's like, but you see all this violence and destruction going on. At what point do you say, okay, I need to separate myself from that? Ugh, that's very, very frustrating. And let me set this next thing up here. Because I guess I have to stop presenting that one tab and then begin presenting the next tab in order to play the video.
That's how it works.
Alright, there it is. So this is the next clip I want to play. Alright. Man, this is heartbreaking. There is a little bit of a graphic video, so you can see here the extreme graphic video. It doesn't show the actual incident, but so this is it's not I don't think it's worthy of being blurred out, but it's heartbreaking and it is very graphic.
His wife probably said to him, Dave, you're 77 years old.
Was that the time frame that I had it set up for? I think this might be... Yeah, it's supposed to start at the beginning. Alright, that's where I wanted to end it. Alright.
It was Police Captain David Dorn. He's from St. Louis. 77-year-old retired police captain was murdered by looters when he tried to protect a local shop. People who encouraged these riots, was it worth it? Did you get what you want? Sickening. And, you know, so this guy became a cop in the 1960s. Of course, he faced, obviously, a fair amount of racism, I would imagine, back in the day. And he was just gunned down. He was retired, and he was helping out somebody whose pawn shop, a friend of his, whose pawn shop was being attacked by looters, and he just got, he just got gunned down. 77-year-old guy tries to save the city, suits up, so to speak, and goes down to try and stop the bad guys, as men do, right? As men do. As men generally do. And what happened? Well, of course we can see what happened. What happened was, and you know what happened with his wife, right? I mean, you know this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, he goes into a little bit of, his wife probably tried to talk him out of it, and he said, nope, I'm going to do the right thing. And the right thing got him shot and killed. And I was thinking about titling this section possibly No Good Deed, because this man, so Floyd, I think his death, obviously needless, but might have been the result of his own actions. And that's something that wasn't obvious originally. But David Dorn, this is cut and dry. There is no possibility that he was going to die had the other person not shot him in the back of the head. Because that's how David Dorn died. 77 years old, shot in the back of the head. For TVs, that's the other. So if you watch the actual the clip, the man. So there was a man driving, saw the incident, hopped out of his car, started filming, and started streaming it to Facebook. And the guys who'd shot David Dorn are running out of the way with TVs. They killed him over TV. And here's the thing, is David Dorn's name has been ringing out on conservative media all day. Trump has been broadcasting his name, and the mainstream media is silent on David Dorn. And you would think, okay, I can see why some people may not rally around George Floyd knowing what we now know. I can see why, although I'm still with the majority of even conservatives who say that cop needs to go to jail and the other cops are guilty as well. And that's the most frustrating thing about this, is the officer involved in the George Floyd situation. He is being charged with murder. It wasn't murder in the third degree, now it's murder in the second degree. The other officers are in jail waiting their trials as well. They have been charged with crimes as well. They are awaiting trial. Justice hopefully will be done in that situation. But there is no justice for David Dorn. The people who involved in that, they don't know who did it. They have no ID. They have no way of finding out. Those guys are getting away scot-free in the riots. But this man has an immaculate record. Not a career criminal. Doesn't have a past encounter where he didn't serve any time in prison, unlike George Floyd. This is a type of person everybody can rally around. Not only was he a law-abiding citizen, he since 1963 until he retired, he was enforcing the law in his community. He was protecting members of his community, black or white. And in an act, damn it.
That's because
Damn it. Sorry, man. I'm getting. Whew. Didn't think I would get in an act of trying to protect his friend's shop, he dies, and there's no justice for Dorn.
Yeah, it's because it goes against what the media is trying to push. They can't call it a peaceful protest if information like that is constantly dumped out. If news stories like that are being talked about, it's no longer peaceful. There's dead people, innocent people.
Yeah, and how does this make any sense? The riots start over the death of a black man, and they cause the death.
He hadn't been active duty for a while. I guess he's retired.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were fighting against police brutality. He's just an old guy protecting a friend's store.
Yeah.
This is completely
Man.
opposite. So it's not even fighting, for black rights against an
Yeah.
oppressor.
Yeah.
He's shot in
Where's
the back
Black
of the
Lives?
head by younger black guys.
Yeah. Where's Black Lives Matters on David Dorn? Does his black life not matter because he was a cop? Man. Oh,
It doesn't fit the narrative, so they won't say it. They omit stories like that because they can't push their agenda. It's terrible.
yeah, and that's that. So that goes into a little bit of the next topic I'm gonna kind of cover. But man, whew, that I got. I was thinking. I had a lot of stuff I was prepared to say, and I was like, okay, I can get through that without. But man, that is, ugh. And this right here proves it has nothing to do with race. All of this,
Nope.
nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with we want people to be able to commit crimes and get away with it, without the police stopping them, and anybody who defies that agenda, they're in the wrong. Because, I mean, look, if you look at the rhetoric and all the things that they're talking about, it's like, oh, defund the police and abolish the police and all that sort of thing. What they're saying is we want to be able to commit crimes without being punished, without any kind of, without any consequences. We want to be able to take people's stuff, set stuff on fire, and have nothing bad happen to us. And that's the crazy thing is people are saying, oh, we need to end all police brutality. And it's like, we have programs that we're doing everything we possibly can, to the best of my knowledge, to end police brutality. We've got as much officer training as possible. And yes, these officers, I said earlier, they were trained poorly. And if you look at all the places where this sort of thing is happening, all of them are run by Democrats. All of them are Democratic controlled for decades, or at least several years. And it's like, okay, Democrats are the ones who can't control their police officers, who can't train their police officers. Because these incidents don't happen all that often,
Right.
or ever, in Republican-controlled areas. This is not an issue,
that's the
or as much of an
problem.
issue. Man.
Yeah.
Alright, so
But that's part of the problem is these are Democrat cities. All the riots are being done by like Antifa and progressives and Democrats or extreme leftists. It's not a bunch of conservative or libertarian people running around setting things on fire and looting.
No, and that's the other thing. They compared this to the protests for COVID, where people were armed and were marching on the Capitol and the courthouses and stuff like that. Completely peaceful. Nothing was set on fire, no crimes broken, nobody was arrested. Also compare it to the Tea Party. At the end of the Tea Party, they cleaned up
Virginia.
the areas. Yeah. At the end of the Tea Party rallies, they went around picking up trash. Sorry, what?
Yep.
Oh yeah, the gun laws. Yeah, the protesting the gun laws. Nothing set on fire. Nobody died.
Nobody got hurt.
All right.
That's a peaceful protest.
So I've got the lyrics to Rage Against the Machine's "Killing in the Name." So I mean, you remember the song? I think you introduced me to Rage Against the Machine when we were in the in middle school and high school. But so very very angry song, but. This and there's a little description here on Genius, the lyrics website. Okay, so describing the song. So a searing protest song against police brutality. Killing in the Name was a lead single from Rage Against the Machine, self-titled debut album. And it was written 6 months following the Rodney King beating in 1999, which resulted in the LA riots. Alright. So this is talking about cops, but it's killing in the name of. Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. And it's repeated several times, and then the refrain kicks in, killing in the name of, killing in the name of. Now you do what they told you. And they repeat several times, and now you do what they told you, repeat several times, but now you do what they told you. Well, now you do what they told you. Those who died are justified. And, ugh. So, Alright. Sorry. Tearing up again. Because this line right here. For wearing the badge, they're the chosen whites. Now, when this song was written, it was talking about the white cops that beat up Rodney King. But as I'm reading it right now, I'm thinking of David Dorn, and David Dorn doesn't count because he was wearing the badge. He was a chosen white, right? He is a race traitor, according to these morons. Because he was fighting against his people and against his color, as if black people have to commit crimes, and it's only white people that stop blacks from committing crimes. And so anybody who puts on a uniform, yeah, their death is justified because they're part of the system, right? The patriarchal racist system. So, but like the song takes on a whole new meaning, and as like I kept saying, in the name of George Floyd, and I was like, man, and then this song popped into my head, and then I'm going over the lyrics, and I'm like, it flips it on its head. The events of today, it's the exact opposite. Like, this song is raging at the officers who beat up Rodney King. And now, this is my rage at the people who are looting and rioting and destroying their communities and destroying the lives of law-abiding black citizens who don't want any part of that. They want to protest police brutality, and there's white people, and everybody is protesting police brutality. Nobody wants police brutality. We want to eliminate it as much as possible. But it's not something that we can eradicate.
Yeah.
It is going to happen as long as people are wearing uniforms, as long as people are in positions of authority. You can reduce it as much as possible, and that's all we can hope to achieve for. We can fight to get it as close to zero as possible. But if every incident of police brutality results in riots that cost people their lives and their livelihoods, then we can have no society whatsoever. Because what you're demanding is perfection. We have every possible measure in our laws against murder, and yet murder still happens. So until you can figure out some freaking solution to get rid of murder all around, like, we can't fix the problem of murder, we can't fix the problem of rape, we can't fix the problem of theft. What makes you think we can fix the problem of police brutality? All we can do is make laws against it and do everything we can to limit it. And these fucking morons...
And then properly punish those who do abuse their power.
Punish those who abuse power, punish those who commit these crimes, and do everything we can to prevent them. But all it takes is one asshole, and then, hey, somebody died who was black, and it happened to be by a white officer. Alright, that one asshole is gonna cost the punishment of millions of innocent people. Really? Yeah. What sense does that make? Alright. Well, that's the other thing, the other line in this song. Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. In D.C., they set fire to that historical church. I forget the name of it. It's escaping at the moment. It's the one that Donald Trump later on went out and gave a PR...
Yeah, it's supposed to be across the street from the White House.
Yeah, it's a church across the street from the White House. They set it on fire. Now, in the lyrics of this Rage Against the Machine song, Killing in the Name, they're talking about the KKK. Because they burn crosses on people's lawns. And I'm like, now it's the other way around. They're going around and burning down churches, setting crosses on fire, as if it's like everything is backwards. And this is 20 years, right? 30 years. In 30 years, everything is flipped. There's still an incidence of police brutality, and now the people who are protesting it, they are more of a problem than the police brutality. Because the officer involved is in jail right now, awaiting trial.
Yep.
That's the best we can do without having some kind of minority report pre-crime division where we're punishing people for things they haven't yet done. Without that, I mean, and that creates all kinds of other problems, but that's that's the only solution these people will abide by, and that's why, yeah, it's so bizarre, it's so frustrating. All right, okay. So, all right, that's the rage and the frustration and the emotional part, and hopefully it's a little less less agitating going further, because although still pretty frustrating. Alright, is this the next one I had queued up? Oh no, the next one I want to do is transition into father figures here, so, yeah. So that's the next clip I've got queued up. Alright, and this is a pretty good video that was released earlier this week. I don't think I'm going to play the whole thing, but I'm going to play a pretty hefty chunk of it.
Hey, we're here with y'all. We're here to help you. Okay? All right? Okay? Okay? What's that? Look at me. It's all right. We're all here together, okay? All right?
Down at 16 is come up with a better way. Because how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16. It's over, you understand me? It's over. Putting yourself in harm's way is not the way. No, it's not. You and another your counterparts the same age and that has that same power. Y'all come up with a better way. Because we ain't doing it. Oh my God.
Years ago, I interviewed Kwesi Nfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. The Journal of Research on Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are the most likely to wind up behind bars. In 19...
Yeah, it's staggering statistics on that, and he's about to get into the statistics on the percentages of father absence, and you can see it in the events that are going on right now. Yeah, do you think the people who are out there looting and rioting is because they had a good father figure to look up to, show them right from wrong? No, these are kids with no respect for authority because they never had an authority figure in their life. They have no respect for other people, no respect for the rule of law, no respect for other people's properties, no respect for the time and energy other people put into building their businesses, establishing their livelihoods. You know, and that's the other thing is a lot of these businesses are there to help their communities. And there's that clip that was going around with that elderly black lady who's talking about they burned down the Office Depot, they burned down the stores at the Dollar General. Those are places I go to shop. Yeah. I don't have any place to go, and the buses aren't running. It's like, yeah, that those businesses, while they were making money off of the community, they were supplying the community with the products and goods and services they needed. It was a mutually beneficial relationship and exchange, and you severed that. Or not you, but I mean those people severed that. That's probably giving them too much
but I mean
credit.
It's not even just the looters and the rioters.
Those animals.
There's also those people that just stand around and watch and laugh at it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. Not people trying to stop the rioting or saying, hey, this isn't right. Yeah. They're just standing around, watching, laughing, making noises every time someone gets punched or beat to the ground and I get jumped. A whole bunch of people crowd around and there's always like 5 or 6 people just standing around watching. Ooh. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the most violent, but they also don't care about other people at all.
Yeah.
They have no respect for anybody. They only think of themselves.
Yep. All right.
1960, 5% of America's
When you don't
children
have a
entered the
father.
world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%. For blacks, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely than today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out of wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out of wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965,
Yeah, and look at that. That is insane. That is in 15 to 16 years, poverty in the U.S. was cut in half. And over the next, 50 plus years, stagnated.
until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities. Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. How do we know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help? They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes, no. Tupac Shakur, the late rapper, once said, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline, I'd have more confidence." He admitted he began running with gangs because he wanted the things a father gives to a child, especially to a boy: structure and protection.
All right, that's where I'm gonna end that section of the video, because the whole thing is golden, and Larry Elder is amazing, and just listening to him talk, and he knows his statistics on this, and he's been talking about this for decades as his career. Yeah, so every time I see Larry Elder, I'm like, man, I'm blown away. He is a phenomenal, very, very insightful person on these matters. And a lot of the statistics that I know, I got from him, and just stuff that people oftentimes don't think about. And you're like, I was like, oh, this explains so much about the inner city communities. And it's like, yeah, they're falling into these traps.
That explains a lot, not just on black communities, but fatherlessness and why there's such an attack on masculinity and males, just period.
Mm-hmm.
All these people growing up either without fathers or weak fathers who are pretty much never there, don't teach lessons, that's now considered kind of the norm. So, yeah, men are now portrayed as weak, useless in media, in Hollywood.
Well, that's the other thing that's, because you've heard that feminist quote about women need men like a fish needs a bicycle. I believe that was by Gloria Steinem, if I'm not sure. I want to look that up just to, Yeah, so I know Gloria Steinem was like one of the founders of feminism and the original, like she was the popular one that okay. So she wasn't the one who said it, it was Irina Dunn. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, for some reason I always yeah. Okay, Gloria Steinem is the one who popularized it. She wasn't the one who originally coined it, but it's often attributed to her because she's the one who kind of popularized it. All right, that makes more sense. But Gloria Steinem was a CIA asset, promoting feminism, and that. So there's all kinds of documents. Like that's not tinfoil hattery. That's proven. She was a CIA asset. They recruited her because the CIA has this. I mean, there's all kinds of documentation on this. They were recruiting good-looking, intelligent people from colleges as assets, and they would use them for propaganda, pushing an agenda. And one of those agendas is they wanted feminism. They started pushing that. They started pushing some of these programs with the gender studies and all of that sort of thing. There are a lot of CIA programs where, and it's because they wanted a figure to fuel this unrest. And so they had various movements going that were basically backed by the CIA. And that's where I think I'm putting on a deerstalker cap, but my deerstalker cap might be made out of tinfoil because this is what I'm starting to see more and more. Is I'm seeing. Well, I guess maybe I should get a little into the next video before I continue on my Alex Jones rant. So Alex Jones-esque rant. Alright. So here's a video from Tim Pool.
A couple days ago, I did a segment talking about how these riots across the country were pre-planned by extremist groups. There was a video that went viral showing a young man finding a big stack of bricks outside of a courthouse, and there was no construction anywhere in sight. He said, "This is a setup." We now have many more instances of activists finding big stacks of bricks in areas where protests are planned. And in response to this, various jurisdictions are calling this out, saying they have seen evidence that extremist groups, likely anarchists, which I think is wrong, but we'll get to that, have been planning this and dropping off weapons and gasoline and other objects they can use to incite violence and cause maximum damage. But outside of the
All right, so I'm going to pause that. I'm going to play the next video as well, because this is kind of the... which one is it? Uh-oh, it's not showing up in my list of... Oh, I guess I do have a scroll bar here, so maybe it's... Oh, there it is. All right.
I've been undercover with Real City Antifa since July of 2000. Depending on the setting, if I were to be caught or found out in a setting where I am present with them, it could escalate to violence against me.
Don't be that f***ing guy with the goddamn spiked brass knuckles getting photos taken of you. Police are gonna be like, perfect, we can prosecute these f***ers. Look how violent they are. Right? Not that we're not, but we need to f***ing hide.
Pause it right there, because so they show the guy. So that was a police vehicle that was set on fire, and these thugs were taking a weapon out of the back of that vehicle. Thankfully, there was a plainclothes police officer that was in the scene. There's a different clip of this. Plainclothes police officer who has a gun of his own runs up, grabs that gun, wrestles it out of the kid's hand, and walks away with it. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, had those hoodlums taken that gun, would have been a lot worse. So that officer, And it wasn't revealed that he was an officer until, because he was plain clothes and he had a gun. But, it wasn't, and then it was later revealed that this guy was a plain clothes police officer that was there to prevent such things like this, and he did an excellent job. All right, but that was Antifa thugs that set the car on fire and were trying to take the weapons out of it.
So currently I am a prospect for Rose City Antifa, and I am about halfway through the prospecting process to become a full-fledged member of Antifa.
If you ruin their day, if you like heckle them, you make them feel like they look ridiculous, you make them feel outnumbered, and therefore their whole yay yay America Trump thing is going to go by the wayside.
They reached out to me through Proton Mail, and we went back and forth, and there was an interview set to meet up in Portland. So to verify that it was me, they had me wear a white shirt and have a water bottle and show ID and material. One is European.
At In Other Words bookstore before they open. And as part of their security culture, they require us to put our phones in the bathroom next door. This bathroom is not only away from the main room where the lecture is taking place, but also has a fan that muffles any sound from the room.
The whole goal of this, right, is to get out there and do dangerous things as safely as possible.
How violent is Antifa or RCA in particular?
Practice things like an eye gouge. It takes very little pressure to injure someone's eyes.
They do not hesitate to either push back or incite some kind of violence. In our classes and in our meetings, before we do any sort of demonstration or black bloc, we talk about weapons detail and what we carry and what we should have. What is black bloc? Well, this is black bloc right now. The term is used to a tactic in which individuals conceal their identity to look uniform so that no one can be identified in an act of a crime. With RCA, it seems much more structured, almost like a company or like a business.
All right, yeah, and what he said right there. So that's the thing people have been saying for years, is that while the individual chapters or cells of Antifa are very disorganized, somebody is providing them with funding. Somebody is providing them with training. Somebody is providing them with weapons and funding and training. This is not a grassroots movement. It's set up to look like a grassroots movement, but there is something or somebody manipulating it from behind the scenes. And a lot of people talk about like George Soros and because there's been links to his companies and funding various Antifa projects or the chapters and things like that, giving money to these groups. So Tim Pool was saying it was Antifa setting up the bricks and weapons caches and things like that. There have been like bags found with bats and hammers and various tools intended for use in the riots. But that's if it was just on one side, I could understand that perspective. But again, like I said, this is where I get kind of into conspiracy theory territory. But from what I can tell, is I think I'm making leaps and stretches, but I think I'm using deduction closer to what Sherlock Holmes will come up with a out there theory, and people are like, oh, that there's no way that could possibly be true, and it's being correct because he's making logical leaps, but
evidence of some Antifa guys doing that. So one of the brick stack.
Sorry, what? Oh, did he cut out? I lost audio for a second there.
Oh.
What was that?
Well, yeah, I think most of the riots are being fueled by Antifa.
Yeah.
So I saw a video where there was one of those pallets of.
Yeah, you said one of those pallets, and then I don't hear anything
bricks,
else.
and there was a dude That's one lady, he handed a brick over, and she took it and then handed it back and started yelling and said, "What's wrong with you?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, sorry, ma'am, sorry." But that was his job. Someone told him to stand
Yep.
there and hand out bricks.
Yeah. So
Like,
that's
why?
one side of the equation. The other
So
side of the
nothing
equation,
organic about that.
The other side of the equation is mainstream media figures calling these riots peaceful protests, pushing the agenda and saying there is no justice, despite the fact that they know the officers involved in the George Floyd incident have been arrested and are being charged. You can't claim there is no justice until the verdict comes out, until all the evidence is made available, till people know, did he actually get punished for what he did, and if not, why not? Because in previous incidents, when people didn't riot and go to the streets until they had the actual verdict, and they claimed the verdict was not justice. But then again, that was based on a lot of, like in the Ferguson incident we talked about last week, it was based on misinformation provided by the media that was never corrected by the media, and so people had this false narrative in their head, and they're like, well, based on this narrative, there's no way this officer could be found not guilty. And then a jury of his peers, including blacks and whites, so it wasn't like an all-white racist jury. It was a mixed group of individuals, looked at the facts and evidence and said, based on the facts and evidence, this man didn't do anything wrong, and he was acquitted. And then people went to the streets and rioted. That hasn't even happened yet in the George Floyd incident. Those officers haven't even seen the original, like the first hearing, where the judge decides whether they should take the case or not. It hasn't even gotten to that point yet. The charges were just filed. That's as far as it's gone. So it's. So there's the media aspect where they're pushing, where they want people to riot based on...
It's because they're no longer worried about justice.
Yeah.
They just use events like this.
Sorry, man, you keep cutting out. I don't know if the mic's not picking up or if it's your internet connection cutting out. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm hearing the same thing from my end, to where it's glitchy.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's my internet connection.
I'm not sure.
Oh.
But anyways, I was saying that it's no longer about justice.
Alright, let me close some of these tabs, because
Maybe it's having the screen share. Like if you turn that off and it's just video again.
Yeah, I'll turn that off. Stop presenting, and I can close that. Alright.
So, are you able to hear me a little better?
Yeah. So I was dropping a lot of frames, so I think it was my internet connection. Sorry about that. Alright, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it probably takes a lot to stream a tab like that, or stream video over a video.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was just saying that they're no longer worried about justice. That's not what anybody's rioting over at all. These are just excuses to go out, cause trouble, destroy things, and get free stuff. Or steal other people's stuff, not free stuff. They're only saying it's in the name of somebody to make it sound like a valid excuse. But if it was in the name, then if these officers get charged and they get sent to jail, as they should, that would be justice. Then there's no reason to protest, no reason to rally and riot, because justice is served. People can be mad and have peaceful protests and say, look how much police brutality seems to be popping up. But the whole riot thing, you're absolutely right. They don't even have a reason to be rioting right now.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the
So it's a cover.
Yeah.
It's a smokescreen.
So it looks like Antifa is pushing for civil unrest and destroying the economy. The media is pushing for civil unrest and destroying the economy. Politicians in these cities, they're telling their officers to stand down, or in some instances, there's reports of police officers patrolling around and pepper balling, like shooting pepper balls, like it's not pepper spray. It's a if I understand correctly, it is a hard ball that when it hits somebody, it breaks open, and then it acts in as much the same way as pepper spray. So it's kind of like it's a twofold riot control measure. There's the actual physical projectile, but then there's also the gas that's dispersed. But shooting pepper balls onto people's porches because they're violating curfew. So there's at least 3 factions all pushing for the same agenda. And I would also say that we also, and based on the past 3 years of members of the CIA and the FBI trying to prosecute and oust the sitting president. And then we've got groups like AOC and the Radical Socialists, and all there's 5 of them that I see. So all 5 of these, they are minorities within their particular groups, right? The Antifa is a minority within these protests, and yet they are dictating how those protests go and turning them into riots. There are police officers, or the administration that's running those police districts, that is either ordering their officers to stand down or ordering officers to engage in this behavior. And it's further escalating these tensions. Then you have the news media, and it's not all the news media, it's mostly just mainstream. You know, you get places like CNN and some MSNBC and a couple of hosts and things like that. They're all perpetuating this narrative because they want to see the United States crumble. And then there's members within our, 3-letter organizations that are also, and all of them have this same goal of crushing America and destroying it and rebuilding it in a socialist agenda. And this is I was talking with people on Blue Top Politics and and some of these other channels and videos, and kind of throwing these ideas out there. But all of this is going is going lockstep with the communist stated agenda when they're plotting out ways to collapse the U.S. economy. Back in the 1980s, when they had people infiltrating. Oh, the other one I didn't mention was Hollywood. So that's number 5, right? So we got our 3-letter organizations, the media, Antifa, the politicians, mostly Democrat, but there's also some Republicans that are also wanting to destroy everything and oust the law and order as we have it, and then groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I should have lumped both of those together, but yeah. So then, so you got Hollywood, political elites. Yeah. So there's 5 factions that are all kind of closing around the United States like a fist. But if you look at all the places that the communists in their agenda, there's all kinds of videos on this. That's not conspiracy theory, from what I can tell. That's legitimate. Their plan to destabilize the U.S. economy was to infiltrate Hollywood, infiltrate the academies, like the academia. And academia is where people in Black Lives Matter and people who join Antifa, that's where they're being educated, is in our school systems. Either the public education and or the universities. Where they're being recruited. They're being recruited in universities and in our high schools and middle schools in the United States. So there's Hollywood got infiltrated with communist people with a pro-socialist, pro-communist agenda, and that's been spreading its way throughout, and now it's become the mainstream in Hollywood, where you have that opinion, and if you don't, then you get kicked out of shows, or you good luck working again. And there's been a lot of conservative figures who can't get any work in Hollywood because of their political views. So then you've got the people who get out of academia and then join groups, these violent protest groups. Then you have the CIA, because that was the other thing. They wanted to infiltrate our law enforcement agencies, not just the local PDs and stuff like that, but the 3-letter organizations. They wanted to infiltrate Washington or Capitol Hill, get their political pawns in there as well, and then the media. So they've achieved all 5 of their agenda. Involved in these movements now has anything directly to do with the communists from the 80s. They're doing it independently, but they're following the same agenda laid out by, this was the KGB back when it was the USSR. KGB had these plots and plans, and were talking about how they were going to tackle or topple the U.S. demon, like the evil U.S. empire. These were the strategies that they're like, hey, if we infiltrate these 5 areas and we get these people on our side, we become the majority, we start small as sleeper cells, grow these momentums until we can control those organizations, and then they go off and they do things on their own independently, but they enact our agenda, even though it's a bit like Inception, right? Where the idea is planted and then the person enacts that idea as if they came up with it on their own. And that's what we're seeing, is these people are acting independently towards the same agenda, and they don't see themselves as the individual fingers of a hand that's closing around the U.S.
Mm-hmm. It's what was that called? The Frankfurt School?
Yeah, Frankfurt School was a part of that. They're part of the Frankfurt School, I believe, was the academia angle for the KGB. That's where they came up with their curriculums and things that they were going to do in academia. Things they were, and that's where you first start to see things like feminism and gender studies pop up, is in the Frankfurt School, when they're pushing these ideas of, everything's about class and race.
They are puppets.
Yeah, so I don't think the individual members of Antifa that are going out there and, throwing Molotov cocktails and bricks, that they're like, oh yeah, this is all for the communist agenda from that we got from the KGB back in the 80s. I don't think they see it. They don't see that connection. But they are the useful idiots who are following the agenda blindly because somebody in a position of authority told them, and that person in a position of authority, maybe they don't even see the direct connection. Maybe they're just like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to. But meanwhile, the idea to do this was planted in them, or, was indoctrinated in them when they were in university or when they were, or wherever. Yeah, so I started saying some of these things, and a lot of people have been like, dude, yeah, that's too far. That's that's flat Earth territory. And I'm like, I don't think so.
There's that former KGB guy who did a whole presentation describing exactly what's happening now.
Yeah.
He said that was a plan they started decades ago as part of their Cold War infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
He described all of that, like exactly what's happening now. And it was to simply do that, to stabilize America from the inside out.
Let's see.
So I don't see how that could be a conspiracy theory when you have a guy who says this is what we came up with, this is the plan, this is how it's supposed to be enacted, and he said it decades ago.
Spoke several times.
And we're still seeing that happening. How is that conspiracy?
Yeah. So these are exactly what we would expect had they succeeded, and it looks more and more like they succeeded. Scary stuff there. All right. So. Okay, so after I expected you to give a little bit of pushback on that, but instead you're seconding me on it. So I'm like, oh. Okay.
Oh no, I've already done my own research on that.
All right, so okay, then I'm not out on in left
I mean,
field saying the aliens are out to probe us. So I mean, not that they're not, but just because you're paranoid that everybody's out to get you doesn't mean they're not trying to.
Yeah. So I've seen a couple of interviews with that Yuri guy.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I heard of him, I watched the one video and I was like, that's crazy. So I went and kind of binge watched a bunch of his presentations, lectures.
Yeah.
But that's where I was hearing about that Frankfurt School and how academia was the first area they wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Over in California.
Because it's really easy once you have the academia. That'll let you control the younger people and all that sort of stuff. But when they grow up, those younger people, whether they join Antifa or Black Lives Matters and then go and do violent protests, or the smarter ones who are indoctrinated through that, they go on to positions of power, whether that be in media or in Hollywood or on Capitol Hill. They go. So there's the useful idiots that hey, they're the foot soldiers and the grunts. And then there's the people who are a little more intelligent and they go and infiltrate positions of power.
Yeah. So part of their plan was also to break up the family unit.
Yeah. That's where you get into
So that would cause destabilization.
Yeah.
Is when that free love idea was being perpetuated in colleges, that's when you see divorce rates skyrocketing and single parenthood skyrocketing and dependency on state or government funding.
Yeah.
So that video you were talking about earlier about the fathers,
Yeah.
that happened right around the time that this plan was supposed to start being implemented.
Yeah.
And that stemmed from what was being taught in academia and pushed out, I guess about third wave feminism kind of started around that time.
No, it was second wave. Second wave feminism. That's the Gloria Steinem version of it.
Yeah.
So first wave is the suffragettes. Second wave is the women don't need men. Third wave is all men are evil. That's the easy, the quick summary of it. Is first wave is give us the right to vote. Second wave is we don't need men at all. Third wave is men are evil and the source of all of our problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Gloria Steinem, like I said, she was a CIA asset, and they were using her to push this agenda. That was, like you said, to destabilize families. So it wasn't for pro-women and women, we want more rights for women. That's the claim, but what ended up happening is exactly what they wanted, which was destabilization of families. So, all right. So I guess I said it was going from more... Yeah, so this is... I guess it is getting a little bit lighter because I can think about this from a hopefully purely intellectual position without getting emotionally tied. The earlier stories, I definitely couldn't. So... Oh, I guess I played that Antifa clip a little earlier than originally planned because that was actually under the Fantifa. But... got another clip queued up here. I'm just gonna play a little bit of this because this came out today and it's pretty awesome. Very, absolutely brilliant. Very well done. So.
And now we're just gonna blend this bad boy.
I didn't reset the time. All right.
Another crucial thing that I must warn you about is this ingredient called Fanta. Fanta is supposed to be added to a smoothie, and Fanta was supposed to be something very good because, the name is so attractive. Fanta, when you hear Fanta, you might think, oh, that is good. Your instinct will be like, wow, well, of course, if it's Fanta, it sounds very nice. It sounds something that will help me and my future and the people around it. But in fact, Fanta is not good. It's not. No matter how many times you see the word Fanta, it should not be added to the smoothie because it's not what you think it is. It is not here to serve you. It is not here to protect your smoothie. It is also not here to save you from bad smoothie recipes. Fanta is here just to destroy things. And if you truly haven't been around in 2016 or 2017, then you must hear this from me that Fanta not a good ingredient in smoothie. Stay away from Fanta. You see, I love to have a smoothie with a little bit of, cinnamon. God, I love cinnamon. Now, this one might surprise you, but I actually love to add honey to my smoothie, so I make sure I add a lot of that. I like to add coffee creamer to my smoothies because I think it just adds that little kick. And now we're just gonna blend this bad boy. At the end, do not forget a...
Right. So, yeah. stop presenting that real fast.
What is all of it? Just chemical cleaners?
Yeah, that is soaps and disinfectant, and the last one was Drano. But yeah, very, very. She's making a smoothie, but it is very, very good. I don't know if this falls into the realm of satire. It's making an analogy, but yeah,
I think that would be satire.
yeah, I think yeah, okay, so it falls in
But
the
it's
realm.
not parody. Parody.
Yeah, it is very, very
Yeah.
subtle and well done satire. So there's more than just that, but I just wanted to highlight the Fanta part because at first I was like, wait, Fanta? What does that have to do with any? Oh, okay, I gotcha. Especially been around in 2016 and 17. Oh, okay, definitely. Yeah. Gotcha. That was pretty clever. So, all right.
Your smoothie.
Yeah, because the smoothie is the current situation. All right. So, again, like I said, getting a little more lighthearted as it goes. But that's all I had for today, except for the ending clip. But did you have anything else? So the ending clip has nothing to do with current events and all that. It's way more lighthearted. So before we get into that, is there anything that we didn't cover or that you wanted to add on, but I was talking and droning on?
I guess one additional thing, and it's kind of related to, I guess, the black community, and that they need fathers, to have that extra guidance. Because along with the riots and the looting, there's also a lot of clips circulating where it's young black men or even Hispanic men basically saying, black and brown together, burn whitey down, or get, just extreme racist type rhetoric. There's a whole group of people now that have grown up, instilled in their mind that, just like feminism says men cause all the problems, they're saying, white people cause all the problems. And the only way to fix it, burn it all down and get rid of all the white people.
Yeah.
So it's along the same lines, but it see multiple fronts of just attacking one group of people without any real provocation. So it is a little scary out nowadays.
And the scariest part is ultimately all of these different movements and factions, all of their end goal is communism. That's tear it all down and then give everything out for free. Yes, that's what the Black Lives Matter wants, and that's what Antifa wants, and that's what mainstream media wants, and that's what the Democrats want. It's like, what? How do all of these separate groups all want the same end goal? Yeah, that's...
Yep.
Yeah. So, whether it's racism or well, I was about to say misogyny, but what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of misogyny, right? Because misogyny is men being evil, right? Or men being or anti-women, right? What's the opposite of that? Gynocentrism? No, that's not.
Yeah, misandry.
Misandry, that was it. Yeah. So yeah, they're like, oh, that's racist, so we're gonna do something, and what they do is racism, or oh, that's misogynist, and what they do is misandry, and it's like, yeah, it's always they always participate in the same thing they supposedly are fighting against. All right. So we got half an hour because so we've been going for an hour and a half. So that means if we wanted to, I could dedicate the next half an hour to this next clip, and I might want to just as a palate cleanser for the rest of the stuff that we've talked about here. But this, I don't know how this happened, but it's possibly the greatest thing that the internet has ever done. So you're seeing this, right?
Yep.
Long, long ago, life was just hunky-dory. A group of people made a piece of cinematic glory. Now they're getting back
The intro is
together.
a little boring. I'm gonna skip through this.
What has 2 thumbs and still can't walk outside without abject terror?
This guy. It's another day of the week, which means it must be time for another edition of Reunited Apart, a show that brings together some of our favorite cast and creative teams from some of our favorite movies, all from the safety of their own homes, either because they're still socially distancing or because they're just too damn lazy to put on pants. Unless you are.
I'm Josh Gad.
Now, here on Reunited Apart, we are committed to raising as much money as possible for those organizations that are so desperately trying to get the help to those who need it the most right now.
Please push that donate button right there if you're on a desktop or right there if you're on a mobile device. And give whatever you can to today's spotlight charity, No Kid Hungry. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 1 in 7 kids in the U.S. lived in hunger. And many relied on the free and reduced priced breakfasts and lunches they received at school. Due to record unemployment rates and new financial stressors, 1 in 4 kids could face hunger this year because of the coronavirus. So we are doing something different and very special on this week's episode of Reunited Apart. We are teaming up with our partners at Cheerios to help pledge
$1.3 million to No Kid Hungry.
Cheerios wants you to join with us to help spread positivity. Share in social with hashtag #GoodGoesRound to encourage others to join and spread positivity to those who need it the most. Thank you to everyone at home.
I'm gonna pause it right there. That's really good, but that's not the best part of this. So you could probably see the name of the video from the tab.
Who's going to take the second right now to make that number go higher and higher
job,
and higher. We are so beyond
donating
great.
as a good cause.
Thank you.
Thank you for the food.
And
Say thank you. Thank you.
so all of this
Now,
is
this
done for
episode, we're
charity.
going to break away from one of my favorite decades of all time, the 1980s, and take a little trip into the future, also known as our past, the year 2001, not to be confused with A Space Odyssey. In December of 2001, this movie and the trilogy to follow would bring with them a level of excitement and anticipation not seen since the days of the Star Wars films. It was a trilogy that would make mainstream words like hobbits, orcs, ringwraiths, elves, dwarves, wizards, and of course a place that all of us would like to shelter in place right now, the Shire. And it was a trilogy that would center around the power of one ring. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them. Today, we are on our own journey to bring together the fellowship behind this iconic trilogy based on the books by author J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Josh!
Hey!
Dad, hey there.
Hey, Sean.
Look, man, I told you the Goonies are done. Brolin sent you a cease and desist. Spielberg changed his name so you can't call him. We're done.
Which is why I'm not calling about that.
Oh, really? Great. What are you calling about? Encino Man? We're going to do Encino Man? How about Rudy? Let's do Rudy.
No, if the people can't have football, neither should we, Sean, neither should we. No, I was wondering what you might think about tracking down a certain group of buddies, comrades, pals. I don't know, what's another word for that? Maybe,
yeah, this is
a
little cheesy, but the intro
You
here.
gotta be out of your mind, man. Come on.
You fought off an army of orcs multiple times, escaped from the clutches of the Uruk-hai, killed the demon spider Shelob. Wounded the demon spider Shelob. Ran away from Gollum, all to destroy the most powerful ring in the world. How hard can a phone call to Elijah Wood be?
All right, you got a point.
I don't understand. Were you already on with Elijah?
I am always on with Elijah. Comforts him.
It comforts me.
Elijah, hey, I'm a big fan. Wondering if you might be up for reuniting apart?
Well, I usually do my reuniting together, so...
Right. Well, what if the reunion in question was one that reunited the cast of The Lord of the Rings?
well, I figured we weren't bringing back the cast of North, but that's not a decision that Sean and I can make alone. Hey!
Dom, where did you come from?
Oh, I'm always just waiting in the wings, you know, in case there's kind of a life and death situation between Sean and Elijah.
Would you say you were lost?
Josh, come on, you're better than that, Josh.
Hey, what would you think of a Lord of the Rings reunion, Dom?
Dom, Elijah, Sean.
Hello.
Hi, mate.
Hey, Billy, were you also just randomly on with the cast?
Yes, we have been on together now for
Billy, don't.
2,565 days.
Oh, we took Monday off.
No, I don't take Mondays off.
Okay, not judging. So again, wondering if we could possibly gather the group together and reunite one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Orlando Bloom is now on.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I just had to find a mirror, just take a quick glance, remind myself that I am in fact Orlando Bloom.
I really don't understand what's happening. You guys always on
It
a
just
Zoom
keep.
call
So I'm not gonna play the whole thing. The whole thing is
we're
like an
always on
hour
the call,
long, and it
always.
just keeps getting
Hey,
better
just
and
has to remind me
better.
to turn the Zoom off.
Because
Life without Henry.
Henry convinced you to do Lord of the Rings? What? I don't understand. So you came into Lord of the Rings later than everyone else, Vigo. What was it like playing catch up? Did everyone immediately welcome you, or were they standoffish?
Well, I am grateful to Henry, although he is kind of a pain in the ass, so that's why I just
yeah,
take this.
so they just keep adding people as it goes on.
Yeah. Wait, then I have to do this. Raise my sword and I say, Ninu
Man, bro, they got everybody.
Primo nin bruinen da nin ulaya. And I say that a few times, but
Yeah, and so they got darn near everybody. Let's see, man. So they have the composer, what's his name? John Rice Davies. Wait, that's not John Rice Davies. Is that the name? Right? The guy who plays Gimli, Jonathan Rice Davies, or is that the guy from the Tudors? Okay. Like the name, I'm pretty sure it's Jonathan Rice Davies. Andy Serkis, and Sean Bean, Liv Tyler. I forget her name, but she played. Oh man, I can't remember the character's name either. But so all of them will redo a classic line. Gandalf showed up. It is amazing. The only one who doesn't make an appearance is Ian Holmes. But he did write a letter that was read. Let's see, trying to think of who else. So everybody in the main cast shows up, and a bunch of people who worked on it. And they talk about stories not only in the shooting, but they also redo some of the scenes. Like it is, like and shit. What Liv Tyler was just saying, she remembers the Elvish, and the other lady, she recites the funeral, like as in Old English, or Celtic, or whatever that was. She recites that because she knows it like it's. I'm like, dude, that is amazing. It's like 19 years later, or longer, because it came out in 2001, so they shot it in what, like 1999? Yeah, all these years later, she still remembers that. It's like, that is ridiculous. At one point, they pull out some of the props that they had, and so like Elijah Wood has
awesome.
Sting. They've got some of their elven blades and stuff, and I keep thinking it's Jonathan Rice Davies. I'm pretty sure that's the actor's name. But he first showed up, he was wearing Gimli's helmet. I was like, dude, that is, yeah. I was like, man, this is...
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Yeah. Yeah, and one more person shows up to the very end after everybody else has left, as a little joke. But I watched this on Sunday. I was like, dude, this. I'm like, if only they had Viggo Mortensen, and then they had I'm like, yes, okay. But they're ain't gonna add Sean Bean because he was only in the one. And then they add Sean Bean. I'm like, oh, come on. And then they just keep adding more and more. I'm like, this gets better and better. Oh, okay. So the only one who isn't there is Christopher Lee, because Christopher Lee is he is deceased. So he played Saruman. So he's the only member of the cast, or the main characters that did not make an appearance. Although they do a pretty good homage for him in this. So that's... Yeah. That is amazing that they got everybody together. I don't know if this was pre-recorded and then just released Sunday, or if they had them all on the Sunday, but this... None of the people in this live call are pre-recorded, so they were all together on this. Yeah, it was like, man, even if it's only for an hour, that is ridiculous. So that is a nice silver lining to the COVID situation, and I don't know how
that's really
long-
awesome. I mean, that's...
So you can probably see this, and they also have a Back to the Future episode and a couple others. And the one that was teased in this one is a Reunited Apart for Ghostbusters. So that'll be next Sunday. So I'm gonna tune in for that.
Oh.
I don't like Josh Gad, but the fact that he's done, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit redeeming. He's not all terrible if he can manage to do this. I was like, I can't think of anything Josh Gad has been in that I'm like, he just seems like a low rent.
You didn't
Jack
like the
Black.
snowman guy from,
Oh,
was
he
that
does,
Frozen?
yeah, he does the voice of Olaf, but meh. Olaf as a character was funny. The voice actor, meh. Like I said, he just seems like a low rent Jack Black. But
yeah, I don't know. That's the only... Oh, wait. No, he was...
I haven't seen anything where it's like, oh, that guy was genuinely funny. And even in this, like the early dialogue, I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah.
a pretty awesome series then. I'll have to see what he's got out there.
Yeah. Yeah, like the early is like the introduction of everybody. I was like, oh, you guys are just all on a conversation together? Oh, Orlando Bloom dropped off during this, but he was there for a good section of it, if not all of it. Oh, yeah. Taika Waititi shows up. Even though he was not he was not in any of them, but he jumps on to ask him some questions, and that guy's pretty awesome. Taika Waititi or Taika? Taika. I think it's Taika. The guy who directed Thor Ragnarok and you'll recognize him when he's on.
Was he part of that movie?
No, he wasn't a part of that movie, but he is from Australia. I guess that's why they added him. So I think that is the full cast plus Josh Gad and Taika Waititi. And I was like, dude, this is...
He's just, maybe like a friend of...
Yeah, so he just gets on and asks some questions, like some trivia stuff, and surprisingly, I think they got all but one right. Because I don't know who would be keeping track of that. It was, he asked them how many times did Gollum say precious in The Two Towers, and it's kind of like, what? Who was keeping track of the number of times it was actually said in the film? People like Taika Waititi, like super nerds. So yeah, it's a really, really good show.
I wouldn't have even thought to keep track of that.
Yeah. So that was kind of like a highlight. It's like, because this was kind of, when the riots were just starting and when COVID was just dying down. But it's like, yeah, it's kind of that silver lining. It's definitely the highlight of my week and probably the year so far for me. Even though I can't remember her name. Dang it. Like, I want to say it starts with an R, but it... That was the writer. Pretty sure that's Mariette Pippin. Anyway. Yeah, so oh man, I can't... Carl Urban's character. Well, that's probably why I don't remember her name. It's because she hasn't been in much else other than Lord of the Rings. Right?
Yeah.
All these other have been in tons of stuff.
Are you still trying to find out Carl Urban's character or the other brother?
No, the other mother was Faramir. What is Carl Urban's character is something with an E. And I wish I knew my Lord of the Rings better. Anyway, this was... I am not the world's biggest fan of The Lord of the Rings, but those movies are pretty epic, and it's one of the best made trilogies ever. Yeah. I remember going and seeing The Return of the King in theaters on opening night, and yeah, that is a really, really long movie, and I got the worst possible seat in the theater, off to the far right, so I'm craning my neck to watch the movie the whole time for 3.5 hours, and left the big creak in my neck, and it was still like the best movie experience ever. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, Peter Jackson hasn't made.
Yeah, I think I went to go see that Return of the King with our cousin.
Yep.
But at the end of the movie, everyone kept standing up, thinking the movie's over, and then
going.
next ending, and then everyone would sit back down. There's a couple people that walked out because they're like, "Okay, I'm done with this."
It ends
They
like
didn't know when the
15
movie
times.
was over.
15 times would have been a perfect ending, and then keep
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
So I think they pranked us about 3 or 4 times, and then we finally were just like, "No, we're just gonna sit here until I actually see some credits."
Yeah. All right. So that is a really cool video, and you should watch the whole thing. It's very entertaining, very nostalgic, hits all the right cylinders. And I'm trying to think, has there been a, like, the closest thing to that has been some of the Marvel movies, but I don't think they've quite captured that same level of epicness. I mean, granted, they've earned more at the box office and stuff like that, but I don't think, I don't think the Avengers films or the Marvel MCU quite matches up to the same epic tale of the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, and some of these others sound pretty cool. Like Back to the Future's got to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But all right.
Is Christopher Lloyd still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. He's right there. Like he's in the thumbnail for it, and you can see him in the video.
Oh.
Oh, they did a Goonies as well. I thought he was joking about that.
Yeah.
Wonder how much of the cast of the Goonies they got back together. The other one he has is Splash. I don't know why that was, but I mean,
like the Mermaid movie?
Yeah, but I mean, it is Ron Howard, Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah, Eugene Levy. I mean, it's a good cast, but not all that like memorable of a movie. I don't know. Like Back to the Future, sure. Goonies, hell yeah. Ghostbusters, definitely. Lord of the Rings, yes. Splash, all right, maybe. I mean, that's.
Ooh, they should do one of like a Star Wars original trilogy.
Yeah, they can't quite do that.
Obviously,
one.
you know.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher's.
There.
Okay, let's see. They could still get. James Earl Jones is still alive, to the best of my knowledge. So they could do James Earl Jones, Mark Hamill.
Yeah, he did the.
Harrison Ford. Frank Oz is still alive. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are still alive. Who else would they need? Oh, Billy D. Williams is still alive. Yeah, the only one they'd be missing is Carrie Fisher.
Warwick Davis is still alive.
Is still alive, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it would top the Lord of the Rings for me, but that would be pretty good. Yeah, because when I first saw the teaser for that, they had Elijah Wood, Sean Austin, and the other two guys. And then Gandalf showed up at the end. And then everybody in the comments is like, oh, but they need if only Aragorn and Legolas was in there. Oh, maybe next time. But and so then when I'm watching the thing, I'm like, they showed up. this gets better and better. And then Carl Urban showed up, and I'm like, I wasn't even expecting you. This would have been just fine without you showing up. But and it was like, and then Andy Serkis shows. I'm like, yeah, Sean.
I didn't remember you were in the movie, but now I remember.
Well, I mean, but he was more of a side
Yeah,
character.
I completely forgot he was in Lord of the Rings, so I saw his picture.
Yeah, he was more of a side character, not
he was in that fortified city.
Yeah, Gondor. Well, no, he was Rohan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rohan, not. So, with King.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was King Theoden.
Yeah, I don't remember the king guy's name, but I think he also had a sister or somebody that was there.
Yeah, so Gondor was the big city with the 3 walls. That was like the kingdom capital, and that's where the steward of Gondor was sitting. And the steward of Gondor was the father of Boromir and Faramir, and he was just kind of a dick, like, oh, they're just trying to take my power sort of thing. But then there was the king of Rohan. He was the guy that Wormtongue was whispering in his ear, and he was, he was weakened and feeble, and yeah, so that guy, King Theoden, I believe is his name. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, so Carl Urban. That's not the right name, right? Oh, yeah, no, Carl Urban is the right name. Keith Urban is the country guy. Okay. Yeah, Carl Urban was the captain of his riders. But I can't remember the names of anybody from Rohan, apparently. It's been a while. Like, I can't remember the last time I watched that trilogy. It's gotta be 13 plus years. But yeah, because I remember getting the box set and like the director's cut, like the 9-hour, and then like the whole. Because I remember watching the director's cut extended editions, and then all of the behind the scenes in like one weekend, and man, that is like there wasn't much time to do anything else because there's a lot of material there. Yeah. Like what is there, like 2 hours of deleted scenes between the 3 movies? It's like a whole extra movie of deleted scenes. Alright. Oh, wow. And I did end up taking the full half an hour. My bad. I thought we were good on time. And yet I was talking another 15 minutes after it was done. Alright. So, respect for your time. But, hey, it's under 2 hours, so hitting that mark. Although we probably could have ended it at about an hour and 10 minutes in. Or, sorry, an hour and 40 minutes in instead of the... So, alright. But that was a nice palate cleanser. No longer thinking about all the chaos and destruction out there, and can finish the rest of my week on a good note, remembering the Lord of the Rings were awesome, and all the people involved are still fans of those, which is... and still willing to come back, and they're still good friends, and they still... Even though the Zoom thing was a joke, they still keep in contact. Oh, that was the other crazy thing is, they all have tattoos. They all have matching tattoos. Everybody from the Fellowship has a matching tattoo. So Gandalf has one, Elijah has one, John, like, they all have the same tattoo that they got during filming. I'm like, dude, that's ridiculous.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, it's awesome. It's not something
That's really
I would
cool.
ever do, but it is, yeah. Alright, now I gotta log off and go watch the Goonies reunion, because I thought that was a joke. Alright, well, thanks to anybody who ends up watching this, and I'm gonna call it a night. Sorry if there was lag, as I know I see the error message saying that it was not smooth and there would be buffering. Probably internet connection on my part, but thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll have something good to talk about next week, because it's been nothing but chaos all year, so time for some good news. Come on, let it be a good week. Alright, see you next Thursday.